At this hour, we repeat, these are the facts as we know them.
And that's when she looked in the rearview mirror.
Some technology from another dimension, another world.
You're still afraid.
I don't know what it was.
A sign of life and death, except.
This will scare you.
Hello, I'm Shannon Brown, and this will scare you. My guest today is comedian and photographer Nick D. They also are someone who's experienced hauntings in two separate places that they have lived in. Is that correct, Nick?
That is unfortunately correct. That is unfortunately very correct.
Yeah, that is, I can't wait to hear your stories, because I know in my childhood home, it was like a 2-story house, and on the second floor, all three, like me, my brother, my sister, all three of us thought that we had something in like this spare bedroom upstairs. There was a spare bedroom only because my mom insisted on keeping my sister and I in the same room as long as she could, in an effort to, I guess, make us bond or something. But
That's
it backfired.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah.
That's how you get ghosts, though, is leaving a spare bedroom like that.
Yeah, because they're like, I'll just move right in, thanks.
This is clearly for me.
Yeah.
You're like showing friends around your house, and this is a ghost room, and this is my mom's room.
Yeah, well, like, it was like, I mean, you can give anything a creepy life, but we definitely did that. And I ended up moving into that room when I was 17. That's like when we finally got our own rooms. And I had to take the creepy room, which was also smaller. No. Yeah. And like, it was okay. I kept the bedroom door closed pretty much whenever I was in there, because I always was afraid I would see something creepy. And like, there wasn't even a hallway. It was just like a tiny little landing. Like, you go up the stairs, teeny tiny landing, and then there were doors. And I was always like, I swear to God, if I see something, I can't come back from that. I'm just going to keep the door closed.
That's a smart thing to do. I can't believe I would have been like, nah, my sister needs to take the haunted bedroom. No, absolutely not.
I mean, after I think she was 16. Like, we are very close in age too. We're 15 months apart. So I think she was like 16 at the time. So after like 16 years of sharing beds, bedrooms, she also got night terrors and would like really freak out. I was just like, give me a garbage can, I will move. We are best friends now, but like right now, as I'm speaking, I am 30 years old. That is how long it took us to become like best friends.
Wow.
But back then, I was just like, look, we're fighting all the time over like borrowed clothing. This lady's getting night terrors and screaming and walking around the house at night. I'm just going to get my own room.
You're like, living with a ghost would be preferable to sleeping with my sister any longer.
Yeah, I'm like, does it scream at night? If not, I'll take it.
As long as it's just one of those like floaty ghosts and not a screamy ghost, we're good.
Yeah, I'm like, you're just here to kind of creep me out. Fine. You're not screaming and like jamming on doors. Whatever. We'll make a deal. Yeah.
I also have the night terrors, and I don't know if it comes from like living in a haunted place or not. But yeah, I get the like, and I didn't know that I ever had them until I started like living with boyfriends, because I had never been sleeping next to anybody before. And then like the first boyfriend that I lived with was like, hey, so the screaming yourself awake thing, is that going to be like a permanent thing? And I was like, what? And he was like, you screamed yourself awake last night. Do you not remember this? And I was like, no. He was like, you sat up and stared at me and then turned around and went back to bed. And I was like, no. I was like, I mean, I'm sure that was scary for you. I didn't know. But now I do actually wait. Now I actually do scream myself fully awake. Basically, yeah, if I'm having a nightmare, my brain will recognize, okay, girl, you're in a nightmare. You got to get out of it. And I'll scream myself awake, basically, is what happens.
I mean, I guess that is kind of nice that like you're waking up for it. My sister would she would usually sit up straight, eyes open. She looked like she was awake, and she would yell. And she'd be like looking around the room, yelling at people she was, I think, dreaming about.
Mhm.
And they sounded very scary, you know, like, leave me alone, don't touch me, let's get out of here, I have to go, stuff like that. And like she would literally like be panic screaming, and it scared us. Like it was, you know, the three siblings, and my brother and my parents were downstairs. So it was just me, her, and like the creepy empty bedroom. And a few nights, like, I think my parents had even, I think she woke up downstairs, and I think maybe my dad also found her downstairs. And it got to the point where like I mean, she did it for a good few years while we were sharing a room, and it got to the point where like I would just kind of ask her questions and try to get her to like realize what was going on, and just be like, where are you? You're in bed, go back to sleep. And she would just be like, oh, okay, and just like
Mhm.
lay down, and no recollection the next morning. And once we separated rooms, one day, I slept through all of this. I think it was from years of her screaming. Apparently she got up in the middle of the night, and she locked her bedroom door, so she would lock herself in so she couldn't get out because she was afraid of like hurting herself on the stairs.
Oh God.
And we were like, I want to say, like, I think she was like in high school, and she was banging on the door screaming to someone to help her, to get her out, because someone was in the room with her.
Oh
So
God.
my brother heard this and just like, you know, shot up the stairs and kicked her door in. And in that instant that like the door was kicked in, she woke up and was like, what are you doing? And he was like, he's like, what are you doing? This is insane.
Did she still
Yeah.
do it?
So she did do it up until she started having kids. And she said that now, because she sleeps so lightly, because she like just instinctively is a light sleeper, to make sure if something happens with, she's got 4 kids. So if something happens with one of them, she gets up. So she doesn't actually fall into a deep enough sleep anymore to have it happen. But when she first moved in with her husband, she was doing it still.
That's crazy. My little cousin used to do that, and the first time that I babysat her, her parents didn't tell me that this happened, and her specific trigger was Super Mario World. They never told me, oh, by the way, don't let her play Super Mario World, because she'll have nightmares of, you know, the big spiky blocks that come out of the ceiling and try to stomp you.
Yes.
She has nightmares specifically about those chasing her around. So I go and I put her to bed the first time this happened, to the first and last time that this happened, because I was like, I'm never watching my cousin again. Are you kidding me? I'm 12. Like, are you fucking kidding me? I think I'm 12. I had to be older than 12, because I think she's 9 years younger than me, so there's no way that I was 12. Maybe I was like 16 or something, and she was 7. I'm not sure what the math is on that.
I'll trust you. I can't do math.
5, 7. I don't know. There's a reason why I'm not a mathematician.
Yeah, you're like, she was 44. I was 2. I was babysitting.
Negative pi. You know, that's just that's a number I heard once. I'm smart. And I go and I put her to bed, and she's like, all right, whatever, good night. And then I go downstairs and I hear her calling me, and I'm like, what does she want? And I go up there and I'm like, hey, sweetie, what's up? And she like turns over and she's like, I fucking forget what she said to me. I don't even remember why she wanted me. But she turns over and she's looking at me. And then all of a sudden she's like pointing at something behind me, like fucking terrified. And I'm like, yeah, like 16 or something. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to turn around. What the fuck? I'm thinking someone broke into the house and they're standing behind me with a fucking knife. I'm like, am I going to die right now? What's going to happen? And I turn around, nothing is there. And I'm just like, bitch, what the fuck? And at that, I was like, bitch, what the fuck, to like my 7-year-old cousin. And she throws the covers off her and starts screaming and running around the bed. She runs out of the bedroom. She runs downstairs. She's running around all downstairs. She's screaming, the bad man's coming to get me. The bad man's coming to get me. The spiky man is coming to get me. And I'm like, what the fuck is the spiky man? I'm like, if I turn around and fucking like Pinhead is standing behind me, I don't, like, what the fuck is happening? So her parents were at Donald Trump's Taj Mahal fucking casino and hotel in Atlantic City for the weekend.
Oh,
And
God
yeah,
bless
this
America.
entire story is cursed. So I want this to be one of those like butterfly effect things where like if we had gone back in time and this had never happened, he would never be president. So I managed to, and this is there were no cell phones or anything. It was like, I had to call the Taj Mahal and be like, I need, my aunt's name's room, like now. And finally get a hold of them. And I'm like, yo, so Jackie's running around screaming that the spiky man is coming to get her. And her eyes are open. It seems like she's awake. And I am like shaking her. And I have no idea what the fuck is happening. And they were like, well, literally just the calmest in the world. My aunt goes, well, did you let her play Super Mario World? And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, you can't let her play that. She has nightmares. And I was like, thanks for the notice, Eileen. What the fuck?
Yeah,
so,
that's not a standard nightmare behavior.
What? So, long story short, like, I cracked her a good one. Like, I got her on the phone with her parents, and they supposedly calmed her down. And, like, all I can hear from her end is like, okay, all right, love you too, Mom, good night. Hangs up the phone. Like, we're back to screaming and running around. Like, she wasn't actually awake yet. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I grab her, I fucking crack her, I backhand her, and she stops for a second. I started running. Like, it was a thing where it was like, I just had to wait until the sun came up and the batteries wore out, and she finally it was just an all-nighter of her. Like, I eventually just said, fuck it, and went and sat on the couch and turned the TV on and just listened to her running back and forth in the background like a cartoon around the house, screaming that the spiky man was coming to get her. And then she eventually tired herself out and fell asleep, like in the den.
Like
somewhere.
Actual sleep.
Like actual
my
sleep.
God.
She eventually tired herself out and actually was able to go to sleep. But there was no waking her. It was insane. And just the terror. And she has these like, she's one of those people with very like translucent blue eyes. So she looks possessed to begin with. And it's this like 7-year-old little blonde, translucent eyed, possessed looking girl pointing behind you like fucking body snatchers and screaming that the spiky people are coming to get her. And I'm 16. I'm not prepared for this. I don't know what that, I'm like, you know what? Let's see what's on MTV. Like, I can't. Don't babysit, folks, because that'll happen.
That's like deeply upsetting. My sister's, one of her kids, her third son, she's got 4 boys. Her third son also, she thinks he has night terrors because before he could talk, he would wake up screaming in his crib and pointing at corners of the bedroom. And at first my sister was like, it's night terrors. And then she became like hyper paranoid and was like, there's a fucking ghost in the house. And then was like, well, maybe there's like a squirrel in the ceiling because she's in Pennsylvania. That happens.
We had one of those.
Yeah, so did we growing up. They get in.
Yeah.
So yeah, we still don't know why he did that. And he still has nightmares sometimes, but yeah, it's really scary and it's really sad for them.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it's like to honestly think that you are in like a lava pit right now and that a giant spiky block with a face on it is just chasing you around, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it's so fantastical. That's not a thing that's ever going to happen in real life. So I guess while you're stuck in that nightmare, there's no logical way for your brain to comprehend how to get yourself out of that nightmare.
Yeah.
On top of it, and especially if you're a child, like, I'm sure it was way more traumatizing for her than it was for me, because she was actually in it, but it's just horrific. Oh, brains.
Well, my stories, I've got a few stories for you today.
Ooh,
and they involve brains and things that you have in your home. So, most people have a mirror in their home. For some, it's just a decoration. For most, it's a way to see if an outfit works, check for food stuck in their teeth, or analyze the current condition of their skin. For some, though, it can be used as a portal to find clarity or horror. In the 1988 cult classic, Night of the Demons, a group of teens plays with a mirror in a haunted funeral parlor in an attempt to connect with the other side. They end up opening a portal to a demonic world, resulting in them becoming possessed by bloodthirsty entities. This is, of course, horror movie fodder. But what if it wasn't? There are many rituals and games involving mirrors, but today I'm focusing on scrying. Have you heard of this?
I have, yes.
Cool.
When I thought that I was a witch in in high school, I remember reading some like fucking teen witch book or like how to be a teen witch or whatever, and it went into scrying and like fortune telling and stuff like that. Yes, I've heard of it.
So for those who were never a young child who fancied themselves a witch, who I did, and most of my friends growing up were like, we're gonna put acorns in water and this is a potion.
Hey, don't at me, all right?
That's what we, without any access to the occult or anything like that, that's what we thought magic was. So
that's a very Pennsylvania thing. I put some acorns in water and that's now it's a potion.
Yep. So for the uninitiated, scrying has been around for thousands of years. Simply put, it's the practice of staring into or just past a surface. Commonly, people use mirrors, obsidian, or a crystal ball as a method of divination or seeking knowledge of the unknown by supernatural means. It's used by many cultures and belief systems to gain insight or clarity, but it can sometimes turn dark. Back in the day, a popular tradition was for young women to gaze into a mirror in a dim room, often on Halloween, to see their future husband's face in the mirror. Because of course.
Course. Yeah. What else are we going to do? You know.
Sometimes they would see a skull or the face of the Grim Reaper if their fate was to die before they married.
Now, see, I would see that and just be like, jackpot! I'm going to marry the Grim Reaper? What? Fuck yes! Awesome! It would just go over my head completely. That like, no, bitch, you going to die.
You're like a black cloak forever? This is great. Sweet. So today, occultists, witches, powwowers, and those looking for answers turn to scrying. I actually became interested in it when I heard about this phenomenon or experiment that people were doing where if you sit in the dark and stare at yourself in the mirror long enough, you will see yourself age to an old hag, or you start to see parts of your face begin to move. I did find out that the scientific theory behind it is that supposedly your brain understands where things go normally on your face, and in the dark with limited vision, your brain is just trying to messily put things back where they belong.
Mm-hmm.
I never tried it because it scares me too much.
Oh, no, that's a very, if you've ever taken any kind of art classes, that's something that, there's always like an exercise where they'll turn it like a famous portrait. We did the one of Albert Einstein with his tongue out. They'll turn a portrait upside down and you have to try to recreate it by painting it or sketching it or whatever upside down, because you're learning to basically that's what your brain does, is that all your brain ever does 24/7 is take shapes and shadows and color and light and rearrange them into a pattern that is recognizable to it as a thing, as a face, as a microphone, as a glass, as a cat, whatever. So you were training yourself to be able to break things down literally by their shapes and shadows and stuff. And that way you learn how to draw more realistic portraits instead of like just guessing and being like, I don't know how to draw. Like, I guess an eye is over here. Like, you learn how to draw literally the exact line that your brain sees instead of trying to draw an eye, if that makes sense.
So cool.
Yeah, and then when you flip it over, it never looked, it was, it was like, oh, it looks close enough, but, you know, but yeah, no, it's 100% your brain, you know, just playing tricks on you, yeah.
Now, it is easy to kind of write all this stuff off as, and basically any supernatural occurrence as just your brain playing tricks on you, but
Mhm.
the 3 stories I have for you today seem
Yes.
simply unexplainable.
Ooh.
So, an internet user said, "Please do not stare into the eyes of your reflection in the mirror. You know that experiment where you stare into the mirror at your own eyes and hold the gaze until you start seeing your face go all weird? If you haven't, please do not try it out. I am begging and warning you. I repeat, do not try it. I hope that by the end of reading this, I have convinced you as to why you should not try this. I loved doing weird experiments that gave me a warped version of reality. Something to break the monotony of life, you know? As a 22-year-old that got stuck in a 9-to-5 job, I desperately tried to change things up. I didn't want to do drugs, so I tried experiments like the above. When I first read about this mirror experiment, I thought it was absolutely amazing. It was so cool to see things change right before your eyes. I remember one particular time when my face got so warped it no longer looked like me. Heck, it didn't even look human. I was absolutely thrilled. So I tried doing this experiment under different lights, like a bright light, a red light, dim light, and lastly, the candle light, just to see the effects of each light. You don't realize how just one single action could completely turn your life around. Like not being able to answer questions on titration in chemistry made me get a C for that course, and as a result, I could not get into medical science, which changed my degree completely and as a result, my job. My life could have been totally different if I had gotten into medical school. Anyways, the point is, it's always the smallest of things that can have a major impact, and for me, it was 3 simply lit candles. So, one day I decided to try out the experiment in candlelight. Oddly, this time I felt scared. Don't ignore your gut feeling. It is honestly like a second brain. In fact, I think studies have proved it. So I felt quite odd, but I decided to go ahead anyways. I lit up 3 candles, enough to illuminate just my face. I started the experiment as usual and stared into my eyes. 20 seconds had passed, and instead of my face changing as usual, it remained the same. I decided to continue for longer despite the itching sensation of unease. Then my face started changing, slowly and clearly. My eyes came too close to each other. They had become red. I didn't realize I had been smiling, but I could see myself smiling widely. It was one of those smiles where you can see the gums on your teeth. They all looked so red. I got freaked out and closed my eyes. When I opened, just for a split second, I saw that warped image of myself again. I thought it must have been one of those images that are sort of retained in your memory and you play them out afterwards. Like when you see a negative image on your computer screen, and then when you see a white wall, you see the image. I brushed it off and did not see myself in the mirror the whole day. That night, I decided to brush my hair in front of the mirror, and I swear for a second I saw my warped version standing behind me with that same smile. I quickly turned around, almost screaming, but didn't see anything, thankfully. After that, I didn't see anything odd for a while. I did stop with the stupid experiment. Then, after a while, at my friend's house, I saw it. I saw it while I was drying some silver pots, and I saw my own face sort of blurred out, but then I saw that odd warped image of myself. I almost dropped the pot. From then on, my warped image made a daily appearance on any reflective surface. Windows at work, puddles on the street, bathroom mirror, laptop reflection. It reflected an image. My warped image made an appearance. If you're wondering how I kept my sanity, well, to be honest, I don't know. I stopped looking at myself in the mirror and got rid of all reflective things in my house and tried to stay away from reflective things. I got my best friend to come stay with me, telling her I was just feeling lonely. My parents are in another country, so sadly I could not flee into their protective arms. Never did I think something I was so familiar with, like my face, myself, would scare me. Every time I look at my hands or body, I looked at it for just a second longer, just to make sure I know it's me. You know the phrase, "I know it like the back of my hand"? That's pretty stupid. because until this time, I had not paid much attention to the back of my hand, and now every time I do, I question if it's the same hands I saw the last time. I needed to share this information with a person, someone who is smart and could comfort me. Though not very religious, I always enjoyed going to temples as I am Hindu. I found it calming and safe. I'd become quite close with the priest there over the years, and he would always tell me wonderful practical stories about life and other important lessons. So I decided I would tell him of my odd experience. I met him on a Tuesday night. Usually Tuesdays are the quietest, so I thought it would be a good idea. After the usual routine of praying, etc., I asked if I could share something with him. He was more than happy to listen. For someone who is always calm, I did not expect this reaction. The minute I told him about the reflection, his face looked extremely worried, and he abruptly looked away from me. Once I finished telling the story, he took a golden jug of holy water and literally emptied it on me right then and there. Usually priests give you a drop of that water with a little golden spoon, not empty the entire contents of the water onto you. Before I could say anything, he went and handed me a lemon without looking at me again, along with some other herbs, and told me to take them with me. He told me to stay away from reflections and told me to come back next week. When I tried to talk, he was still not looking at me. He told me to leave and come back next week. You can imagine how scary that must have been. A priest freaking out? That fucked me up. So guys, here I am, writing this down in the hopes that someone else has had a similar experience and or could provide some sort of comfort. And I could really use the help because my warped image that used to appear in reflections, I saw it yesterday at work. Not on a reflection, but standing near my colleague's desk.
Was it him?
Yeah, that was it. We don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, I love it. Whoever this is thinks that because they spent so much time staring in the mirror instead of studying their chemistry and got a C. That means
yeah,
that they're
I was
the
like,
devil. Blame the devil.
I was dumb in school and never took chemistry, so I didn't know what that word was, and I still don't know if I pronounced it
Here's the
correctly.
thing. I took chemistry, and I don't know what that word is. I'm like, oh, you got a C? Bitch, I got a D. My story's scarier.
Yeah, I'm like,
I also did not get to go to my chosen college.
Yeah, I'm like, I joined art club.
Yeah, exactly. I did great at upside down paintings of Albert Einstein, but I couldn't tell you what's in water.
So another user by the name PH, already digging it, talks about a black mirror.
I love
First, it did not occur to me until I started working on this episode that black mirror meant, seeing an alternate reality through.
It's a computer screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. It refers to computer screens. That's why it's all like, what is it? It's like, ooh, your mom's a scary robot. It's like
it honestly, I'm just such a big baby. Like, even if I know something is not real, when I lay my head on the pillow to go to bed, every scary thought or thing I've ever seen just floods into my head, and I have trouble sleeping because I'm like, cool, a shadow 100%. Person, a weird robot, who knows?
Yeah, I, to this day, as a grown adult, am under the impression that horror films are made to warn me and that something is real, and they have to be able to tell the public that this is the only palatable way to do it. And I also, to this day, sleep with all of my limbs firmly on the bed and the covers over my head. I always sleep like fully underneath the covers. And like my most recent ex was always like, why do you like I think I said something about being cold all the time. And he was like, "Oh, is that why you sleep completely under the covers?" And I was like, "Oh no, boo boo, that's for ghosts." It's not. It's because like I'm pretty sure that there are still ghosts. That's why.
Yeah, you're like, look, I'm gonna burrito myself under this blanket, and I will wake up screaming.
Mhm.
So it's up
Yeah.
to you on whether or not where you want to camp out. So figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get you a nice comfy couch, bud. But meanwhile, like, I love spooky shit and I love horror, and I'm not going to stop watching it. I'm just going to burrito myself at night. That's all.
Yeah, I'm just gonna terrify myself so I can't sleep ever.
Yeah, it's so fun.
So they say, first, before I begin, this is a true story, not Reddit no sleep true, not true for the sake of scaring ourselves silly, not to keep the mood of no sleep. I'm posting this here because it won't be met with ridicule.
Yes, it will, bitch. And then you ended up on this podcast.
I've always had this thing with mirrors. Always. They creep me out. It's a weird concept, really. Reality is being perfectly reflected. I hold pagan beliefs, and it does not help that silver and tin, the two most common backings for mirrors, are involved in spiritual practices dating back centuries, namely alchemy. I'm missing my point, though. Mirrors are odd. It might just be because of how they obviously reflect shadows at night and make things seem to flicker, changing the most innocuous of things into something sinister. However, this feeling turning the innocent sinister attracts me with the sensuality of death, the longing, buried under logic, for things that I should surely fear. This is part of why I made a black mirror. Now, first of all, a black mirror is a scrying tool with pagan religions. However, I decided, in my brilliant wisdom, to use it as a necromantic scrying tool. Essentially a cool way of saying, talking to spirits. This is where I screwed up. Big time. I made the mirror benign enough. You take a new empty picture frame, paint the glass black on one side. On the other side is your new black mirror. Ta-da! Most people stop there. Everyone save a reckless idiot stops there. But that wasn't good enough for me. I didn't want to just provide a little surfaces for images to form on. No. I wanted to make a mirror to reflect the spiritual realm of reality and act as a portal between the two. I bought some lovely paper and wrote out 5 words. It should be noted that this was mistake number 1. I translated it into Latin without reverse translating to make sure the right meaning went through. The 5 words were, in order, past, present, future, sight, soul. Each word was bound by a rune in front of and behind the word. One, bright stave, the other, murk stave, both for symmetry and spiritual balance. Mistake number 2. At this point, I don't remember what the runes were. After making this layout, I wrote it in Theban on lovely paper and put it behind my black mirror, ready to go. Next day, home alone for the afternoon, I decided to test out my new black mirror, see if it works. I thought it would be a benign novelty. Of course, it is if you don't make it into a portal to a spiritual realm rather than a scrying tool, that is. I sat down and looked in the mirror. I noticed how the black mirror reflected accurately, but washed out color. It was like a black and white world. Then I noticed my eyes. In the back of my mind, I thought, the eyes are the windows to the soul. Mistake 3. I didn't realize that the windows to my soul were staring into the window to the spiritual realm. In the reflection, my eyes looked wrong. Concentrating more, I tried to see specifically what looked wrong. They were a bit too far apart, too high up, then too low, and too close. They seemed to be shifting. Suddenly, my pupils dilated. My face, shades of gray, turned into a solid slate gray face shape. My eyes turned black, and the gray face shape shot out of the mirror as if it were a cannon into my face. I flipped out, covered the mirror, and ran outside into the sunshine. I live in South Florida on a lake. I looked out over the usual shining lake, hyper real green grass, my dock, the palm trees. Then everything started fading, like someone was moving hue sliders on reality. Everything reached shades of gray after that, and I blacked out. My next memory was back inside my house, the mirror safely stowed away. My dog was growling, looking between me and the mirror, hackles raised. She slowly calmed down and went back to napping. Since then, I've been having nightmares, visions in the dark, and I've gotten paranoid. I used to never remember my dreams. Now I remember them all in detail, but trying to pull one of them to the surface of my mind warps them, melting people like candles into grotesque beasts, making me fear my own mind. Even now, I'm terrified just typing this. I've jumped at least 4 times at the slight breeze outside. Worst of all is the visions in the darkness. I see things. The gray face. I can't look into shadows anymore or darkness. I can't even close my eyes too long for fear of the gray face. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it wants. I don't know what I've opened a portal to. Tonight I will try to beat it, though. I'm going to use the mirror again. I can't go on scared of my eyelids. I've been reading into summoning specific spirits, making it a controlled process. I don't know what else I can do. Fight fire with fire, right? So fight the gray face with some other spirit? I cannot stress this enough, though. None of this is fancy. None of this is made up. This happened in the past few days. I'm hearing voices in the dark now. I'm using the mirror soon. I don't know what will happen. I'm scared. I'm really, truly scared. But what else can I do? And I did not see the follow-up to this, so I don't know if they made it out on the other side.
Incel on bath salts makes spooky girlfriend. Story 11. When he was like, I wrote down 5 words. I was going to be like, I want a ghost girlfriend.
Yeah,
Apparently
I don't
that
know.
wasn't it. When you were
I
like
feel
South Florida, I was like, oh, well, duh.
I feel like with this stuff, like during the day, I can legitimize it and be like, I don't really know if I believe in that. It's kind of silly. That would never happen. But then there's also a part of me that went to Catholic school for 13 years. And I'm like, I will not fuck with the devil.
Oh, I fuck with the devil. I fuck with the devil because I went to Catholic school for 12 years. And I'm so anti-religion and anti-Catholicism. Like, I'm one of those people that definitely, like, has read the entire Bible. And, like, if you actually pay attention to it, like, not once does the devil actually do anything bad in the Bible.
Yeah.
But they're always talking shit. Like, the devil came to Jesus and was like, yo, man, you need water? Like, you look bad. Like, I know you're trying to prove some shit to your friends, but like, yo, I got you. Like, I'm trying to give some nice cold water to my unhoused neighbors during this heat wave. And everybody was like, boo, devil. Like, what?
Yeah, I would love to see like a version where like Jason Mantzoukas plays the devil.
Oh my God.
And he just shows up and he's like, bro, what up, dude? Yeah.
Yo, if you had an apple,
you need some
apples
help.
are great. That's what Jason Mantzoukas. Apples are great. I don't know. I'm trying to. That sounds like a Muppet. That doesn't sound. You know how manic he is.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm like, very similar.
He is a bad
Yeah,
rap,
I don't.
Just because he was like, "Hey God, you're being a little harsh, man. Some of your shit doesn't really make any sense." And God was like, "Out of here, blah." Like, I think God's probably the less reasonable one in this situation, right?
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. I do always wonder, like, what if I grew up without religion? Because I am not religious now. I consider myself to be agnostic. But there are certain things where, that, I mean, it was, drilled into my head for 13 years, beginning from childhood. So there are still some of those leavings where, like, if I get a weird feeling, I'm like, ooh, something could go left here. I don't know what this is about. But most of this stuff, I think, like, if you do practice, I mean, it's supposed to be more like rooted in nature, and there is nothing inherently evil about a lot of the practices.
Yeah. I feel like, to me, it's become more of a thing with, if you think about it from a scientific standpoint, about like matter never being created nor destroyed and stuff like that. Like, sure, you know, if somebody dies, is there still, because you're like your brain completely relies on like electrical impulses to work. So it's like, even if you die, is some of that electricity still around? Is that energy still around? Whatever, and is that what you're sensing as a supernatural presence, or whatever, you know? Like, can someone's brain thoughts still move doors after they're dead? Fuck, you know. It, and also like the shit that like we don't know about how time actually works and stuff like that. Like, it's like all of that shit, I do believe might be possible. But maybe we can't explain it yet, whatever. But anything, and as you're about to hear in a little bit, I grew up in a fucking haunted house, and I still, to this day, like, I saw the fucking ghost, and I still, to this day, like, rationalize to myself of like, well, it's probably because of this or this or this. It can't just be like a ghost, and there can't be an afterlife, because that makes no fucking sense, you know. I feel like there are rational explanations for everything.
Yeah, I mean, and that's human nature, is to rationalize things and make just like, you know, your brain trying to put your eyes on your face where they belong. We're just constantly trying to find that perfect spot for every single thing in our minds. And that whole, you know, electricity thing, that's kind of my thought process behind it. Do I think ghosts are real? I don't know. I think it could be possible. I think aliens could definitely be possible. We're still finding different creatures and plant life, you know, in the jungle and the ocean. We don't know everything, you know, and I think it's at the very least, if you don't believe in any of it, I still find it entertaining. It's fun to wonder what could be possible.
Yeah, I feel like you know, like what we're doing now, like going back and forth and trying to find a reasonable, believing that the thing could very well exist and trying to find reasonable explanations for it, as opposed to like shutting someone down or making them feel dumb, or just absolutely not wanting to have anything to be like, you're stupid, ghosts aren't real. Fuck you, I lived with one for 11 years. Or
and that's a horror movie on its own, is being tortured.
It. Yeah,
you know,
or
you
being
know, like,
into it to the point where you're like, it's definitely real, like, and you know, like all like the ghost hunter bullshit and stuff like that. I feel like there's two extremes that can just go poorly. That I agree.
I agree, but if I could get paid the money that those people get paid to do paranormal investigations, or like, you know, work to debunk or prove things, that's a dream job.
Yeah,
hell yeah, I would love to do
those
that.
Memes that are like, would you sleep in a cemetery for $10 million? I'm like, I do it for $10, boo. I do it for free for fun. I don't give a shit. $10 million, I'm gonna sleep on your grave. Yes. What?
Yeah, I'm like, I think you underestimate just how much I need money and I like money.
Yeah, and also just like creepy shit. Fuck.
Yeah, well, and I think it's also kind of an interesting, like, I don't even know. I guess like a sociology test, you know, like there are certain cultures that really deeply believe in spirits. There are some people who really believe that, you know, it's disrespectful to step on a grave. You have to walk around them. There are people who think zombies could be real. And there are people who just don't believe in any of it and think, you know, a cemetery is just a cemetery. So I feel like with those posts, those people who like, you know, comment on Facebook or Instagram or whatever and like totally freak out, and then it's just really interesting to me to see just how wide that spectrum of belief is.
Yeah, well, I mean, zombies are real. Like it has been proven, at least like in the insect world, like there's like that fungus that will invade ants' brains and turn them into zombie ants. So like I do believe in the possibility of like an I Am Legend type zombie thing, where like there might be some vaccine or a medication or something that fucks up your brain basically and ends up, you know, controlling you to do it at once. I don't believe in like coming back from the
Bro,
dead.
it's called birth control.
What? why am I in a fight with a pot right now? Like, oh, it's the birth control. I have a true story that happened. I threw a pot across the room one time, and I was like, I need to get off this. Like, this is bad.
Yeah.
As far as like a coming back from the dead thing, though, I don't believe in that kind of zombie. But I do believe that, like, yeah, like what, if there is a fungus that could control an insect, why not like a human or something like that? I do believe that just from a strictly medical standpoint is possible.
Yeah. I think, there a lot of things in horror are derived from real occurrences in life, in science and medical science. And I just find it all, extremely interesting. They take diseases or, experiments and write it in a way that's really terrifying to people, because I think for some people there is a touch of reality there.
Yeah, that's why I don't fuck with body horror a lot, because I'm like, oh god, what if that happened? Ugh, I can't, like, I've never seen any of the Alien films, and I don't fucking want to.
Yeah.
Nope. I don't need to see anything bursting out of anyone's chest. I'm good. Like, I don't
It was funny. I'm fine with that, but one of my fears is like being split up the middle. And there's this movie Terrifier with this clown, and I wanted to see it, but I think he split someone up the middle in that movie, and that's not for me. I really don't enjoy that. It scares me. To me, I imagine it it's like too realistic for me for some reason.
I gotcha, yeah. See, that realistic shit doesn't bother me. Like, I love gore. I don't mind like watching someone get split up the middle, but I mean the kind of shit where it's like your body starts turning into something else. Like, I can't. Or is like used as a host for something. Like, that shit freaks the shit out of me.
Like Nightmare on Elm Street when that girl turned into a cockroach.
Absolutely. That, and then like a dude turned into a motorcycle. There was one, which sounds ridiculous, but that was gross. Oh my god. And like, I can't deal with a lot of shit, with a lot of the Freddy shit, because it's people turning into gross shit. That I can't. Like, Freddy himself doesn't bother me. Or like all the Hellraiser shit with the Cenobites, or like one of them turned into like a CD player or something. Like, it was really, like, the dumbest thing. But still, like, the way that they present it is a bit like Cronenberg. I can't really fuck with, because it's just too, a body turning into something else is not. I can't. No. There was one really bad one where like someone turned into like a VHS player or something, but it still was like, that gotta be painful and terrifying. Or no, it was like a giant TV. I don't know. It was a really bad one that my friend told me about, but someone turns into like a giant TV or something.
I think that was that might have been, I think it was Dream Warriors, Nightmare on Elm Street. Freddy turns into a TV, and there's a girl watching it, and her dream was to become an actress, and she still, while she was in this like treatment facility, kept saying once she got out she was going to move and become an actress. So she's watching the TV up close. It's hanging on the wall, and Freddy's arms pop out and his head pops out of the top, and he says, "Welcome to prime time, bitch." And
I love it.
Drags her, smashes her head through the TV, and then she's just found in the TV on the wall, like hanging out of it.
That's crazy. That's not what I'm thinking of, but that's fucking crazy and hilarious. No, there's like, it's a really bad like off-brand horror movie where somebody but it is along that same, the protagonist is a male.
It's like Daymare on Mel Street.
It's one of those, like, have you seen the like off-brand Disney movies that are like very, very close but also make no sense and are like 30 minutes long?
So you're like, wait a minute, who made this?
Like,
and
why?
it's
I don't
no one that you know of.
Penis? What is this? Yeah, anyway, no body horror para mí.
Well, I have one last story for you.
Yes.
I can't remember. I think it might have a teeny bit of like freaky body horror, because I mean all these stories do.
I was a teenage mirror.
It's like Animorphs, where they just like slowly turn into the mirror.
First off, I've never read any of those books because I'm slightly too old for them, I think. But like the covers are, I'm like, I feel like it would be a lot more painful to actually just go through that over and over and over again. It can't just be like, and now I'm a possum. Give me your trash. It's like, no, this like all my bones are being reorganized and
reorganize my bones.
Reorganize my bones. Hurts.
So this person goes by Mute Nostril Agony.
Oh, this is going to be
real. Yeah, it's like, hell yeah, that's a cool name. So they said, I lurk on here all day, every day. I'm obsessed with horror and death and all that spooky shit. Anyway, I read, but don't post. Never even signed in until now. But I feel like this needed to be put out there. This is not creepypasta. This legitimately just happened about a half hour ago. This is true. Seriously. Before I start, if you don't know, scrying is the process of looking into luminescent substances such as crystals, stones, glass, mirrors, water, fire, smoke, with the intention of seeing past, present, future, your faces from past lives, demons, spirits. It unlocks your unconscious. Well, it's still odd for me to say, but I'm a witch. Crystals, herbs, altar, athame, bowl and pestle, spells, all that good stuff. I used to be a strong atheist and don't believe in any of those gods' deaths. I believe in energies and possibly, especially after tonight, spirits. Well, there's definitely a fucking ghost in my fucking house. I was like, I read that and I was like, I need to be friends with this girl.
Sorry, that was just so funny. It was so technical. She was like, I am going to name all of the tools that a witch must have. The correct way to cast a spell is, there is a fucking ghost in my fucking house. It took such a turn. Okay,
yeah, I was like, I was like, all right, she's getting real at this point. So there's a fucking ghost in her fucking house. I don't get spooked easily, but I'm shaking. There was an orb on my shoulder. My fiance recorded it on film. I feel so heavy and like wobbly. I can't think of a better term. My vision isn't right. I made a scrying mirror a few days ago. It's pretty simple. I took a black picture frame I liked and ceremoniously painted the glass totally black. If you can see any light showing through after the first coat, keep going until it's as black as can be. Somehow, my fiance's mom saw it. As soon as she picked it up, she refused to put it down. She was unnaturally connected to it. She just started naming off the things she was seeing before I even told her about the mirror and what it does. A little boy that was laying down. She said that apparently the little boy was a demon. Faces, horns, her dead grandmother, my cat Salem, just the craziest shit. I had my fiance sit down with me and made him scry. There are sometimes he says he sees or hears something in the house, gets a little creeped out, but usually chalks it up to some logical occurrence. I could tell he thought this was all bullshit. But as he sat with it and focused, he was very quiet. And after a while, I asked him what he saw. He wouldn't say. Then took a turn and fuck. I can't even explain. It's hard to type. My hands are shaking so much. What I saw and heard were honestly just too private and disturbing to me that I can't even type it all out. Sorry, guys. We got all of this filmed. Ended up holding the black frame up to another mirror and had another flashlight as the only source of light. And my dudes, that is when things got totally fucked. There were orbs galore, shadow figures, a forest with a person hung on a rope swaying. I have this little German trinket that you can wind up and play one of those creepy little jingles that are in every horror movie ever. Once the music began, oh baby, oh man, that goddamn baby that just didn't look fucking natural appeared. When the music ended, the infant disappeared. There was a rather large, oddly shaped orb that seemed to keep pulsing or throbbing. We seemed to had all realized it at the same time. It was a human heart-shaped orb that was beating. I started saging the shit out of the house, myself, my fiance, and even my damn cat, but my fiance's mother was not having it. She refused to be cleansed and just flat out said, "I don't like it." Well, okay. My fiance and I shared a quizzitive look, but I went on with my business. When I got to the bedroom, I panicked. Something wasn't right. I was facing the back wall, saging the door to the porch. My shadow was in front of me because of the lighting, and no fucking joke, I shifted to the right, and another shadow stood in the place I was just in. There were two shadows, clear as day, mine and a slightly taller, vividly clear shadow next to me. I had been chanting a spell, but I just flat out said, "Get the fuck out, you fuck."
This is my kind of witch.
Yeah, I was like,
I'm paying
I
a
really
professional to come cleanse my house, and then like I just come walking in. I'm like, "Hey, get the fuck out, you fuck!" That'll be $500.
Yeah, I was like, I really like that this person is like into supernatural stuff, but is also like from Bucks County, Pennsylvania.
This is like the Delco ghost hunter.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Jen.
Just like, yo, you got a ghost in
Yo.
your fucking house and you got to get it out.
There is a supernatural presence in this house. You gotta
Yo,
get it out.
hon, they've been bothering you while you've been sleeping?
Tell them to go. You gotta tell them to go. They're not gonna go if you don't release them.
So she says, "Get out, get the fuck out, you fuck," and opened the porch door to the patio and saged until I could clearly see smoke in front of me. There was just so much going on, and we were all just freaking the hell out, so I'm definitely just skimming the surface of what we all saw. My fiance is going to go through the film and analyze it. We're all level-headed, science-driven people who are always trying to find out a reason for something. We're just very analytical. And after all that, my fiance's mother wanted to take the mirror home with her to play with it. I hesitantly said yes at first, as she was bringing it back in the morning, and honestly, I didn't really want it in the house. My fiance said it's not safe, and I agreed. I feel like it was cursed. I didn't feel any positive energy. I felt very weak, vulnerable, and unsafe. I pictured her wrecking her car and immediately changed my mind. She's too obsessive with it anyway. It's not healthy or normal. Does anyone know what the fuck happened tonight? I swear, this is 100% serious. No creepypasta, nothing. This really happened, and I don't know how I feel. So, I know you said you did some scrying when you were a teen, Nick.
Yeah.
Did you have any like weird experiences then, or like have you had any now?
I never really scried. I just read about it. I did like my friend and I got together in my fucking haunted apartment in college and did like past life regressions on each other. But I've never actually scribed because, like I said, lived in a haunted house. I already had a ghost. I ain't trying to invite any more. Like people would be like, "Oh, it'll be ever so fun. Let's do Ouija board." And I'm like, "I'm out. No, I'm going home. Like I don't need
ever
this.
So fun.
It'll be ever so fun. Lights and feathers, stiff as a board." And I'm like, "Nope, not. Mm-mm. Y'all ain't live with this shit. Yeah, no. Yeah, ha ha ha. It's so fun until you got to live with this shit. Nah."
So I think that's a great segue into your stories. What have you experienced?
What have it, girl? Okay, so I don't know because I've lived in multiple haunted places. And you know, you and I are both from the Philadelphia area, and everything there is super old. Everything there is like, "Yay, the revolution, you're welcome." Like everything is old and creepy and colonial looking. So it could just be a factor of just living there and everything is haunted, you know. Or it could be a factor of, I don't know if ghosts just know that I was like a very gullible little idiot and I'll believe anything when I was little. So they were like, latch on to her. Yeah, like, great. Um, follow that one around. It's terrified that it'll be fun to terrify a child. But yeah, so the main haunting of my life, basically, I grew up in a haunted house. We lived there for 11 years.
That's a long time.
It's a long time. It was horrific. So the main story is that a previous owner of the house had died in the attic.
Do you know how?
I have no idea. I don't know. And the thing is, it's like, I know that my dad was probably just telling me that to scare the shit out of me. Like, you know, it was a very old house and it made a lot of noise. And it was one of those things where, you know, my parents at first would be like, oh, the house is just settling. It was always the house is settling. And then there was one night when I think it was like we were having like a Labor Day party or something. It was like late at night and the sun had gone down and we were all sitting out back. And I remember my neighbor's garage had like bats living in it. And the bats would always come out at night and fly around and stuff.
Now, for California people, I feel like in California, that's uncommon. On the East Coast, we have bats. Like that
bats
is
all over. I don't know if it's a humidity thing, maybe. I see bats here all the time, though. I see little baby bats flying around at night all the time. Yeah, I think it just depends. Maybe it depends on what kind of trees you have, because I do live in an area that has a lot of like normal trees, not just palm trees. So maybe it might be that. I don't know. I'm not a batologist. I don't know what the term is.
I didn't want people to think you're like describing like Transylvania, like an old castle with bats in it.
Of South Jersey. So I mean, they weren't huge bats, but it was just like, you know, a little Becky, they'd fly around, you know. And I remember, like, I think this might have been like the first time that I had seen them, and I was like, what the fuck is that? My dad was like, "It's bats. Like, you're cool." And he was like, "What are you afraid of bats for?" Be cool. You know, my dad, be cool. My dad was from New York and everything. He was like, this very short, angry Italian man from New York. He was like, "I don't know what you're afraid of bats for. You live in a haunted house." And I was like, yeah. So this is how I learned. And I had to, because my parents got divorced when I was 9. So I had to have been younger than 9 when he told me this. And then my mom was like, "Don't tell her that, Steven," you know, whatever. So, and I was like, "How is it haunted?" He was like, "Yeah." He's like, "All of that stuff that we've been telling you this whole time, that the house is settling." He's like, "That's the ghost of the old woman that died in the attic, walking back and forth across the attic." And then my mom's like, "That's bullshit. Don't tell her that, whatever." And then, of course, I go to sleep that night and like I'm clearly able to recognize that the sound that I had heard every night for the past 5 years is very clearly the footsteps of a woman or someone walking back and forth across the attic. It's very, and like for a second, I was like, my dad is the kind of asshole that would go up there and do that just to scare the shit out of me. But then I was like I heard it and I was like, "Dad!" And then I could hear him go, "What?" from his room next door to my room. And I was like, well, it's not him. Oh, fuck. So ever since that, like, just weird shit would happen almost every day. You definitely could hear her every single night. So we had, it was a huge old creepy Victorian house. So there was an attic, an upstairs, a downstairs, and a basement. So the upstairs of the house, like you would go up, like it had like a completely like hallway, like enclosed staircase to go upstairs. And then you would hit like a landing at the top, and the bathroom would be right in front of you. And then if you went to the right, my room was first. And then because my parents hated each other, my dad's room was in the middle, and then my mom's room was at the end of the hallway.
Oh, and even after they got divorced, you guys all stayed in the haunted house together?
Well, no, they got divorced. He moved out. But the entire time that I still always just think of them as my dad's room and my mom's room, because they always had
Okay.
2 separate rooms. And then, you know, one of them became the spare room after they got divorced and he moved out. And then at the end of the hallway to your left would be the attic door, and then you would go up another covered stairway into the attic. So the first time that I saw her was, okay, so my mom was a nurse and she worked at night, and I would always just be home alone at night. And she would leave. So I started sleeping after my parents got divorced because nobody was there with me. I started sleeping in what used to be her bedroom at the end of the hall. And then she would leave the bathroom light on because you could see it immediately all the way down the hall. They were like across from each other down the hall. So that way there was enough light that I wouldn't have to be terrified, but I could still sleep. Because like if I had a nightlight and it was too much light and I couldn't sleep and whatever. So I'm sleeping in the spare bedroom at the end of the hall. And I still have to this day like a little stuffed cat that I used to sleep with. And something woke me up. And like I knew the drill by now. Like if something woke me up, I would just kind of like open one eye a little bit to just kind of like see what was around and like discern if I had to pretend to go back to sleep or not. And I opened my one eye and I could see at the end of the hallway a silhouette in the light. And it looked like, I don't know if you ever saw those old the Dick Tracy cartoons where they were drawn like an upside down triangle, basically. Very big head, big shoulders, and then the rest of their body got very small. So it was a silhouette that looked like that. The head and the shoulders and the top of the body were very large, and it went down into a smaller body. And I started walking down the hall. And I shut my eyes and I pretended to sleep as well as I could. And it came into the room and started to try to pull my stuffed cat out of my arms. Yeah.
I have full body chills and I keep like readjusting myself in my seat because I can't deal with the stress.
Happened to me. Like this is not a new story for me, and I'm like remembering it. I'm like about to freak out a little bit right now. Yeah, so it started trying to pull, and I loved this little stuffed cat more than anything. I would die for this stuffed cat. My dad used to be a toy maker, and he made plush toys, and the company was called Nicole Plush Toys. It was named after me. So this little stuffed cat was a sample that he was going to send off to somebody that he had like left on a table, and I happened to like scoot by and take it when I was really little, and then I wouldn't let go of it. And it became like my little toy. And I was like, no, I will fuck. Like one time I left it at daycare by mistake and was inconsolable over the weekend. Like it was, you know, like nothing was taking this fucking cat from me. So she starts pulling on it. And I'm like, fuck you. And I'm just like, keep your eyes closed and pretend like you're sleeping, but do not let go of the fucking cat. And I'm like fucking gripping this cat to me. And eventually, what is that?
What?
Are you hearing that?
Hearing what?
No, my RuPaul's Drag Race just started playing.
Oh my god. You scared the living shit out of me. I was like, do you hear something? Because I'm sitting in my closet right now and like you can see my bed and the window behind me, and I'm convinced as I'm telling these scary stories, I like, oh, Jesus Christ, the dog. I'm like, I take her collar off when I record so that she can be in the room with me, but like like we don't hear it. And as I'm talking about something like, you know, popping up behind me because I psych myself up with this stuff, she touched me.
No, if something was coming up behind you, I'd be able to see it. I'd be like, "Oh, girl, run! Shut the door." Okay. So
anyway, back to this evil attic woman.
Play on something by mistake. So I'm just like, fucking close your eyes, grip your cat as hard as you can. And the pulling, and then eventually she just gave up and stopped, turned around, walked out of the room. I waited like a couple minutes, you know, to try to make sure she was gone. And then I like cracked my eye open again and gone. There was nothing there. There was another instance where she came into my bedroom, my actual bedroom, and ate my gum. She used to she used to come into my bedroom. I think she specifically bothered me, I guess, because she knew that I probably believed the hardest because I was a child. Because my mom never reported any personal incidences with her, and neither did my dad. But she used to come into my room every fucking night and fuck with me. She would like pull on my sheets. She'd pull my sheets off me sometimes. So one time I had a little nightstand, and I had like an obsession with gum. And my dad used to get me the like 30 packs of Big Red that came with like a brick basically of gum. And I had like 40 of them in my nightstand drawer. And this one night, like I hear her come in, and then I hear rustling around in my fucking nightstand. And I'm just like really? And for a minute, I was like, I wonder if it's my mom coming in to like rifle through my shit and she thinks that I'm sleeping. But then at the same time, I was like, I'm not going to open my eyes and look. Like, you know what? If it is, then I guess she's going to know everything in my diary because I ain't trying to stop nobody right now because if it's a ghost, I don't want to know. So I hear all this rifling and stuff, and eventually it stops. I wake up the next day and I look in my nightstand, and like a cartoon chunk, like bite mark, had just been taken out of the corner of the brick of gum.
What?
Like, I guess she was an old enough woman that she did not understand how gum worked, that like you have to take the individual piece out of it, take the foil off of it, and chew it if you want to chew gum. And she just like hacked into it like a candy bar, foil and everything.
And you never found that missing chunk anywhere?
No. It was like you could see individual like teeth marks. It was insane. And I was just like, and that was the point when I was like, okay, she is not evil. She is curious. I don't know if my dad like mentioning her like got her to be like, okay, well now they know I'm here, so I'm gonna go find out, you know, what the 1980s are all about, you know?
Yeah.
But it was like you could clearly tell this woman had no fucking idea what gum was, but could tell like, I guess I eat this and just I was like, okay, so she doesn't. If she wanted to kill me, she would have by now because we've been in this house for 10 years by now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you think it was like an intelligent haunting? Like she knew you knew stuff, she could touch and move things.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think it was one of those like the ghost has unfinished business but doesn't even know that they're on this plane. Like she was there and she knew and she could move shit. And it was her house. And she wanted to see what was up with this family that was in her house.
Just like Beetlejuice.
Yeah, but not an asshole, you know? She was just like an old lady. So my mom, I've realized in my old age that my mom probably burned my house down when I was 12.
So the haunted house?
The haunted house. My house burned down when I was 12. And the culprit that I was told forever was the squirrel in the wall. So the thing...
Which is a thing that happens.
Which is a thing. So supposedly, the story that I was told was that the squirrels that were in the walls, like, chewed some wiring, the wiring sparked, caught on fire, burned only the attic and parts of the second floor. Yeah. Parts of the second floor down. So my friend Lori had been over my house, and it was me, my friend Lori, and my mom were at my house, and then we wanted dinner. So my mom sent me to walk up the street to this like deli and burger place up the street and pick up burgers. It was maybe like a mile up the street. So Lori and I walk up there, and then we walk back home. And as we're walking home, so I lived on like like an alternate truck route. Basically, so like, you know, if trucks aren't allowed to be going down 55 for whatever reason, they would have to divert to my street and go down that before they could get back on the highway. So every now and then you would see like puffs of smoke in the air from I don't know if that's their brake or their throttle or whatever, or trucks like blow the smoke out.
Oh, yeah.
Every now and then you'd see that. So we're walking back down from the deli and I see like smoke and I was like, oh, you know, a truck went by, whatever. And then as we get closer to my block, I'm like, I see hella people just in the middle of the street, everyone's staring at a house and there's lots of smoke, and I'm like, oh my god, my neighbor's house is on fire. And then we
Oh,
get close
no.
enough, and I'm like, oh my God, my house is on fire.
Oh.
Yeah, so my attic burned down, and like it had just been my mom, and I remember her being in a real shit mood that day. She's bipolar and has issues. And then the excuse was always that a squirrel had chewed through the wiring. And then the older that I got, and the more cognizant I got of my mom's condition, I was like, how would they know though if it was squirrels? No one ever found squirrel bodies. If the attic had already been on fire by the time the fire brigade got there, how the fuck would you know? And then I was like, I will bet you anything she needed attention and she burned the fucking house down. So I remember her specifically being very excited about the fact that, well, at least the ghost will be gone because the attic burned down. We won't have to deal with the ghost anymore. And it's interesting because I would always be afraid to like walk through the house by myself at night. Like whenever I was left home alone at night, like I had every light in the fucking house on, especially because like our dining room was like, the light to the dining room was on the other side of the dining room from the living room. So if it was dark, you had to walk through it in the dark to turn the light on. And I was like, I'm not fucking doing that. Are you kidding? So like just every house light was on, every light in the house was on. For me anyway. And then whenever I would be like sometimes my mom would be like, can you go to the kitchen and grab me whatever? And I was like, no. I was like, I'm not walking across the fucking dark ass dining room. The ghost is in there. And then she would do things like she would go stand at the edge of the dining room and be like, ghost, show yourself. And I would scream and be like, absolutely not, and run upstairs. Like she always acted super unbothered by it. And then suddenly, after the house burns down, she's like, well, at least the ghost won't be there anymore because her part of the home burned down. And I was like, that's real weird that suddenly she's worried about it. So I don't know if it had been secretly really fucking bothering her and she just never said anything about it because she knew that to say that to me would probably ruin me.
Yeah.
But long story short, they were able to rebuild the top half of the house.
Oh,
and
nice.
Bitch was back. Bitch never went away. It was still, and we had a brand new attic, brand new floor of the attic / ceiling of the second floor. And you could still hear the footsteps every single night. It was no longer old lumber that would creak. It was not the house settling. We should not be able to hear this, and you could still fucking hear it. The only time that she started getting quote unquote violent, but not really. Basically, she was just mad when my mom decided to sell the house.
She's like, where am I going to get Big Red from?
You know, she's like, I'm addicted to this shit now, bitch. Like, what if someone moves in and they don't chew gum? Oh, that's another thing. We would have random fly infestations in the attic. Just out of nowhere. Like, as if they were coming to feast on a dead body. Like, you know, if you find a dead body that's been there forever and there's hella flies, we would just get random...
Was it the squirrels?
No. Yeah. It was no, but like it would be sometimes you would open the door and you go up there and it would just be like just fucking all over.
Oh my God.
Just so many flies.
Just like poltergeist stuff.
Yeah. And then like the next day they'd be gone. And there would not be carcasses. There wouldn't be like 100 dead flies or whatever. They would just be gone.
What?
Yeah. Some ghost shit, yo. So when the ghost knew that we were moving out, she started getting mad because she was like, no, you're my family. Like, we all live here together. I don't want a new family. I want you guys. And that is when shit started flying off of shelves. I was in the shower one time and the shampoo and the conditioner both went flying off the fucking shelf. There was one time where I was doing the dishes and a mug that had been way back in the back of the cabinet came flying out of the fucking cabinet and across the kitchen, like just barely missed my head. And at that point in time, I think I was 15. and I had been living with her forever, and I was just like, yo, like, stop it. Like, I'm not, it's not my fault. Like, my mom wants to move. Like, we're gonna move. It is what it is. And like, you just like, don't fucking throw shit at me. Like, the fuck. And then after that, she stopped. After I was like, yo, like, can you please just fucking stop? It has been 11 years of this shit, and I would really just like to not have to do this anymore.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so we moved out, and I don't know if she's still there, if she bothers, because the family that bought it from us is still there. They've been there for 25 years now, I guess, however long it's been.
You have to find them online and like message them and see if they have experienced
so
anything.
I'm writing a screenplay about it. And I do know who they are, and I am gonna contact them and be like, have you guys ever had anything happen? Because all this shit definitely happened to us. Like, I saw the bitch, she tried to take my cat. Yeah, it's you know, it's interesting now in my old age. Like, I try to justify things, and I try to find explanations for things, like we were talking about earlier, of like, well, you know, what if it was a squirrel that had gotten into my nightstand and ate the gum? Like, but then I think I would know if there was a fucking squirrel in my bedroom, you know? Like, what if what I thought was the ghost was my mom coming into the room to tuck me in or something, and I was half awake, and I interpreted it as the ghost coming to take my cat. But then also, like, no, I know that she had not gotten home early, because she would have said something to me about it. You know, like, you know, maybe the mug, it was at the edge of the shelf, and that's why it fell over. And then, you know, when I think about it, I'm like, no, like, I know for a fact that it was in the back of like a deep, like, old Victorian cabinet. There's no reason why it should have just, like, it didn't fall, like, it flew.
Yeah. Just like that weird unexplained stuff that, like, you know, I honestly do think most people are rational. They want to find the true reason for things, and like, you know, something like a mug flying off a shelf, it's freaky.
Yeah, you know, you don't want to admit that shit, especially because I am so skeptical of other things. And then especially because, you know, I was going through a lot of like abuse and trauma and stuff basically the entire time growing up. And then, you know, whenever I see, like, there was a show on Netflix, I think it's still on. I think it's just called Haunted or something. Where basically, and it's always some like redneck that's like, aliens took me. But then they, you know, they get into the story, and it's like, oh yeah, no, my dad was also like so much incest, like, you know, and that's when the aliens started coming. And it's like, no, your brain created the aliens because it didn't know what to do with itself, because you were going through horrific abuse and trauma.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'll watch those shows and I'll like clock it 5 seconds in, and it's like, no, that's a trauma response. There are not aliens. And then I think about my own situation. It's like, well, you know, maybe your brain was making shit up because you too were going through that kind of situation. Not incest, but, you know, just like abuse and stuff like that. It makes me, you know, wonder, like, you know, maybe that was your brain's way of dealing with it, was to come up with something so far worse that it was, that's the only thing that made it able for you to get through the abuse that happened to you every waking moment of your life, was to be like, well, it could be worse. It could be a ghost while you're trying to sleep, you know?
Yeah. Well, there's this book I read back like when I had just graduated high school. I think it's called Splitting Time, and it was written by a psychologist who, with the consent of her patient, wrote about this one specific patient who endured this like awful abuse at like through childhood, and as a result developed, I think, multiple personality disorder. So her personalities were so well defined that, you know, they each had their own backstory, their own like accent, cadence, their own likes and dislikes, and even they had like images of handwriting. Each personality had their own handwriting too. And, you know, I found it was absolutely fascinating. It's really terrible, but you know, for people who are looking for legitimate reasons for these experiences, I do suppose trauma response could be a reason,
Yeah.
that's not a supernatural or paranormal reason.
Yeah. A friend of mine in college had multiple personality disorder, and they were able to diagnose it because she had different handwriting for each person. They would,
Wow.
let me speak to so and so now, and then so and so would come out, and it was like suddenly, like, and my friend was left-handed, and suddenly she was like writing perfectly with her right hand and shit. It was like, okay, no, you're not pretending.
Wow.
Like, this is some actual shit. I don't think I have multiple personality disorder, but I can see how, like, if there's someone else there to blame the thing that you're about to get beat on for,
Yeah,
your brain starts doing that. Well, it wasn't me, it was Sheila. Please don't, beat me up. I was just sitting here. How come now I'm being abused suddenly?
exactly.
Yeah, it's just so fucked. I wish that people would stop having babies. If you're just going to abuse them. God.
I know.
So, on a happier, I guess, but fucking scarier note. So the ghost that I ended up, I don't know if there's a better way to segue into the second ghost. So anyway, yeah, we moved into a new house, and then nothing ever happened. That's what makes me doubt that it was solely a trauma response, is because you would think that those things would have followed me into the new house, because I continued to be abused in the new house. And her boyfriend, who also abused me, moved into the new house with us. So it was like worse, but there was no haunting at all. So that's the thing that makes me doubt that it's simply a trauma response, because you would think it would be like, oh man, you're not going to believe it, but the old lady from the attic followed us over here. And it's like, okay, now this is definitely a trauma response. And nothing ever happened in that house at all.
She was probably tied to that structure, that land.
Yeah, it definitely was not something personal with us. Like, she was stuck in that fucking house, I hope she's being nice to the people that live there. I remember, like, the people that bought it from us, they had a little boy, maybe 4, and I think that's how old I was when we moved in. I was 4.
Wow.
Or no, maybe I was still 3. But he was really little, and I just saw this idealistic couple, like, moving in with this baby pretty much, and I was like, oh boy. And I was like, oh, I want to tell them, but I know my mom will kill me if they back out of this, because the house is haunted. So I hope that boy did well. I hope that boy isn't, like, in prison or something now.
Oh God.
So, like, you got haunted and just woo. So speaking of Philadelphia and everything being haunted, I went to college. I went to the University of the Arts, and it's a small enough school. Its main campus is in the middle of Philadelphia. So basically, anytime that you ever see a recording or a photo of, there's that iconic, it's like, it's Broad Street for people who don't know. And you can see City Hall, and there's like that divider, and there's always like lights going down it. That's what we call the Avenue of the Arts. And that's where my college was all up and down that area. But it was in the middle of a city, and it was a small enough college that we only got dorms freshman year. So sophomore, junior, senior year, if you could either become an RA and get housing that way, or you had to go find your own apartment. So I found my own apartment, and it was a little studio. Literally, I mean, I could, it was so small. It was like, here's one wall, here's the other wall. But it was like my first apartment. It was mine. And like, it was $4.95 a month, all utilities included. And I was just
wow.
Like, I know things that will never happen again. Right. Yeah. And, I paid for it. It was mine. And I bought my little, like, futon set from Jennifer Convertibles. And, I had like my first, like, adult apartment. I loved it so much. And then the haunting started. So I don't remember how long I stayed in this apartment, maybe 8 months total. So it had to have been fairly quick. I was, walking, quote unquote, across my apartment one day. And something very clearly grabbed me by the back of the sweater and pulled me backwards. Yeah. And I was just like, what the fuck was that? I just stopped. And I was like, I was like, I am not doing this shit again. And I like, my best response that I know how to deal with a ghost is just to pretend like you did not notice it. It didn't happen. Hopefully it will leave you alone. So I tried to ignore it. And I mean, pulled me backwards. Like, I took 2 steps backwards and just kind of like stopped and was like, just pretend like it didn't happen, pretend like it didn't happen, pretend like it didn't happen. And just went about my day, you know, whatever. And like things started falling over. Everything fell out of my closet one day. I was like, okay. But then once again, in my mind, I'm rationalizing it as, you know, like, well, you just had too much stuff stacked in the closet on top of each other. That's what happened, you know, etc. So I was telling one of my coworkers about it. I was like, I think my apartment's haunted. And she was like, oh, you got to do feng shui. Feng shui will get rid of ghosts. she was not Chinese. There was a white girl being like, feng shui will get rid of ghosts. Let's go smudge your apartment. Like, are you native? So I got this feng shui book, and it was like, you know, one of the ways, basically this one area of my apartment, the energy was not in balance. And the way to balance it, this book said, was to introduce an element of wood into this one quadrant of my home, this one square of my home. And one of the ways to do that, like, it has to be a living piece of wood. So like if you get a plant or something, that counts. So I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. Like, it was like I could either paint my apartment green or I could get a plant. And I was like, I'm not going to paint my apartment, I'll get a plant. I was 17. So I get this fucking plant and I put it on a table in this tiny little area of my tiny little apartment. 3 days after I get the plant, I wake up in the middle of the night to this horrific crash. And I turn the lights on, and the plant had been ripped out of the planter and had been thrown to one side of the room, and the planter had been thrown to the other.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
So apparently it did work because it pissed whatever was in there off. It pissed them off.
They knew what I was trying to do, and they were like, bitch, no. Like, yeah, that's the fucked up thing about it, is that it worked in the sense that, like, homie revealed himself for real. It was no longer a thing, because even if the plant had just kind of fallen off of the table in one piece by itself, I could then rationalize it as, oh, it must have just fallen over. But literally, it had been ripped out of the fucking planter and had been thrown to opposite sides of the room. It wanted me to know that it was there. It wanted me to know that it was mad. It wanted me to know that it was his fucking house. He wasn't going anywhere just because I happened to be there. It was either I had to learn to live with him or I had to get the fuck out. And how dare I try to expel him from his own fucking apartment? I was like, absolutely fucking not. So, I mean, that was like 3 a.m. or something. So I just kind of like, I'm like, where am I going to go? So I just like sat there with the lights on all night long, just kind of like in my own apartment. Cause I'm like, am I going to go to Little Pete's? Like, what am I going to fucking do at 3 o'clock in the morning? So I was like, I need to get the fuck out of here. And I ended up getting an apartment with 3 other friends of mine. We got a 3-bedroom apartment. So I literally slept in the living room for a fucking year because I just needed to get out of my haunted apartment. And I sublet the apartment to this guy that I knew who was looking for an apartment. And I didn't tell him that it was haunted, but I needed to get the fuck out of that lease. And he was like, so did you like talk to your landlord and stuff? I was like, yeah, it's all good. Because like the leasing office was in that same building, just like on the bottom floor. So as long as somebody was sticking a check for $495 under the door, like I didn't give a fuck who it was. I didn't tell my landlord. I just packed up and I left, and my friend moved in. And then I got a call from my old landlord like a month later, and he was like, did you sublet your apartment? And I was like, oh yeah, my mom got sick and I had to move home. I like made up some shit. And he was super cool about it though, thank God. Because he was just like, okay, well, I have your security deposit for you. And I was like, fuck yeah, security deposit, come through. So like he gave me back my security deposit and everything. And then my friend moved in and the landlord just didn't care as long as somebody was paying the rent. It was fine.
So did your friend ever have experiences in there? Oh.
So a couple months later, I ran into him on campus and he goes, oh, hey, by the way, I meant to ask you, I could have sworn someone pulled me by the neck the other day. I know, right? And he was like, did anything weird ever happen to you? Because like, he was like, it could have just been me. I could have just overstuffed the closet, but like all of my shit fell out of the closet and I could have sworn somebody like pulled on my neck the other day. And I was like, ah! Or like, done. And I was like, no, why? That's so weird.
Oh my God.
Yeah, those things happen to me. And currently, the apartment that I live in, I can't take a photo of my closet, or else my phone shuts off.
That is one of the creepiest things I've ever heard, period, and that I've heard today.
Yeah, I can't. And I live here. I still live in this apartment, and I cannot take a photo of my closet, and my phone shuts off.
Oh my God.
And my cat. Oh, and it's always freezing in my closet. Like, yeah, it's always like maybe 10 degrees colder in my closet than it is anywhere else in my house. Like right now, it's 100 degrees outside. I could probably go chill in my closet and be good. It's that nice in there. And my cat is obsessed with getting in the closet. But it could also just be because she knows I never open it or go in there, that she's like, I want to go in the closet, Mom. But she like, I have to like put her somewhere if I ever open the closet to like, because I have like all my tools and shit in there. Because she will run in there. She wants to know what is in that closet stuff. She's obsessed with it always. Yeah, I don't know. I have a haunted closet, I guess. Because I don't know. I just had a bad feeling the other night that there was something in my fucking room. I don't know. And I was like, oh man, I'm real freaked out, and I don't want to open my eyes right now. And I really hope I close that closet door. And then it was just like no sleep till Brooklyn. I was like, I'm not. Like the sun was up, and I was just laying there like it's like a cartoon where it's just all black and you just see eyes. I just like all night long, like just not. Yeah. Anyway, haunted closet. Ghosts find me, man. Yeah.
Well, hopefully / unhopefully, you don't have any more stories after this. I mean, I hope for the sake of this show you do, but for your sanity, I hope you don't.
I'm so tired. I don't need them.
People who are looking to follow Nick, you can find them online on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, what have you, at Nick D Photo. And anyone who wants to follow This Will Scare You, you can find This Will Scare You on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And be sure to subscribe and review, and please keep washing your hands and wearing masks, because even though we're recording in August, this will come out in September. I'm pretty sure that we're gonna still be doing this, so please think of other people.